The cold winds of January swept relentlessly through the isolated village of Kremink, tucked away between thick pine forests and the frozen shores of the Volga River. In a humble wooden home on the village's edge, the Vulov family lived their quiet life. Mikhail, a burly lumberjack with calloused hands and a quiet strength, his wife Anna, a healer who crafted remedies from herbs found in the surrounding woods, and their daughter Katya made up their small family. In 1930, Russia was undergoing a monumental shift. The revolution had led to Stalin's first 5-year plan, and collectivization was sweeping across the countryside. Traditions were being replaced by industrial progress. Yet, in remote Kremink, change came slowly. The villagers held tight to their old ways, whispering of forest spirits and household demons whenever the government officials were out of earshot. Katya Vulova was born on the winter solstice of 1920, a night when the aurora borealis stretched across the sky in a dazzling array of green and violet, a sight so rare this far south. The midwife, old Baba Oya, made the sign of the cross as she first held the infant. She noted that the baby did not cry, but instead stared intently at the dancing lights outside the window. "A strange one," Baba Oya murmured to Anna. "Born between worlds, on the longest night. Watch her closely." In her early years, Katya appeared like any other child. She was curious, lively, and quick to laugh. With her wide gray eyes and hair the color of autumn wheat, she stood out even in a village where beauty was common. By the age of 5, she could recite entire folk tales after hearing them only once, a skill that delighted the elderly villagers, who often invited her into their homes for tea and stories. But as Katya's 7th birthday neared, Mikhail and Anna began to notice something peculiar. While other children grew taller and lost their baby teeth, Katya remained unchanged. Her face stayed perfectly round, her milk teeth still in place, and her height remained the same. They initially thought it was just a delay, that she would eventually catch up. However, by her 8th birthday, when no changes had occurred, Anna took Katya to the district doctor in the town of Volgrad, a full day's journey by horse-drawn cart. The doctor, after examining Katya, shrugged. "Sometimes children develop at different rates. Perhaps she's just small for her age. The revolution's effects on nutrition have been hard on many in the villages. Try to give her more milk, more eggs, if you can find them." Mikhail, using his woodworking skills, traded for extra food, ensuring Katya received the best nutrition possible in those tough times. Yet she stayed the same, always looking 7, despite her chronological age of 10 by 1930. The discrepancy was becoming too obvious to ignore, especially in a small village where gossip was inevitable. The other children, once her friends, had started to tower over her, treating her differently. Some out of curiosity, others with the kind of casual cruelty children often show toward those who don't fit the mold. One cold February afternoon, Mikhail returned home from the lumber camp to find Anna sitting alone at the kitchen table, holding a teacup that had long since cooled, staring off into nothingness. "Where is Katya?" he asked, hanging his heavy coat on the door hook. With Baba Oya, Anna replied, her voice distant. "I needed some time to think." Mikhail sat across from his wife, gently taking her cold hands in his. "Something has happened," he said, more as a statement than a question. Anna nodded, her eyes finally meeting his. "I was mending her winter dress, the blue one with the embroidered flowers. It hadn't worn at all. Not a single thread was loose, no fading, no sign of use. And she's worn it every Sunday for 3 years. Children are careful with their best clothes," Mikhail suggested, his voice uncertain. "No, Misha," Anna replied, her voice low. "Today she cut her finger while helping me peel potatoes. It was a deep cut, one that should have bled. But the wound, it closed up before my eyes. Within minutes it was gone. No trace of it. Mikhail frowned, the creases on his face deepening with concern. You must have been mistaken. Perhaps the cut wasn't as deep as you thought. Anna pulled her hands away from him, her gaze hard. No, Misha. I saw it with my own eyes, and it's not the first time. Last autumn, when she fell from the apple tree and scraped her knees badly. Remember, the scratches healed so fast, no scars, nothing. And she's never sick, not once, even when half the village was bedridden with influenza last winter. Mikhail stood up abruptly, pacing the small kitchen, his boots thudding against the wooden floor. These are blessings, not causes for concern, he insisted. Our daughter is healthy, resilient. Why do you speak as though these are bad things? Anna's voice, sharp with frustration, responded, because they are not natural. She crossed herself immediately as if to apologize. Forgive me, but you know it's true. Children grow, they change, they bear the marks of their experiences. Katya does not. That night, after Katya had been returned from Babaya's house and tucked into bed, Mikhail quietly slipped into her room. The moonlight filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow over her peaceful, angelic form. Her face was serene, untouched by time, perfect and unchanging since the day she had turned 7. Mikhail examined her small hands folded neatly at the top of the blanket, searching for any trace of the cut Anna had mentioned. But her skin was flawless, not a mark to be found. Returning to the bedroom he shared with Anna, Mikhail found her still awake, staring at the ceiling. We'll take her to Moscow, he said, a tone of determination in his voice. There are better doctors there, experts. They'll explain what's happening. Anna's eyes flickered with doubt. The party officials won't allow peasants to travel to the district center, let alone Moscow, she replied. And we can't afford such a journey. Mikhail's resolve didn't waver. I will find a way. I'll speak to Comrade Leonov tomorrow. His brother works for the railway. Maybe he can help us. But as February faded into March and the grip of winter slowly loosened, Mikhail's plan became increasingly difficult to realize. The Soviet authorities were wary of peasants leaving their assigned regions, especially during the crucial planting season. When Mikhail approached Comrade Leonov, the local party representative, with his request, Leonov laughed. Moscow. What does a lumberman need in Moscow? He scoffed. The capital is for important party matters, not for peasants with sick children. Use the district hospital like everyone else. Meanwhile, strange occurrences around Katya seemed to multiply. The family's once friendly cat began to hiss and arch its back whenever Katya entered a room. The milk in the cellar curdled overnight after Katya fetched it. A mirror cracked when she gazed into it too long. These were small, easily explained incidents, but together they cast a shadow of unease over the Vulov household. By April, the villagers had begun to notice as well. When Katya attended the village school, a single room where children of all ages learned basic literacy and Soviet principles from a teacher sent from Leningrad, the other children instinctively kept their distance. Not out of cruelty, but because of an unspoken sense that something was not right. Like animals sensing a predator, they instinctively avoided her, though none could explain why. One afternoon, Comrade Soka, the teacher, called Anna to speak with her after class. Your daughter is exceptionally bright, she said, adjusting her wire-rimmed glasses. Her essays are beyond what I would expect from a child her age. But I'm concerned about her social development. The other children don't include her in their games. Anna answered carefully. She's always been different, quieter, more thoughtful than most. Soka pressed on. It's more than that. Yesterday, during our lesson on human biology, I explained how children grow and develop. Katya raised her hand and said very firmly that not everyone needs to grow, that some people are meant to stay the same forever. The teacher lowered her voice. When I corrected her, explaining that all living things must change and eventually die, she smiled in a way that sent a chill down my spine. She said, "Not everyone." That night, Anna sat beside Katya, who was watching the stars appear in the twilight sky. "Your teacher spoke to me today?" Anna began, her voice gentle but probing. "She says you've been saying strange things in class." Katya turned to her mother, her gray eyes reflecting the first evening star. "I only told the truth," she replied. "What truth?" Anna asked, using the affectionate diminutive of her name Katusha, though it had been months since she had felt comfortable using it. "That I don't need to grow like the others," Katya answered matter-of-factly. "I'm different." Anna's voice softened with a mother's concern. "Everyone grows, my dear. It's the way of all living things." Katya shook her head, a small smile playing on her lips. "Not me. I decided not to." A chill ran down Anna's spine. "What do you mean you decided?" she asked, her voice tight with fear. "The night of my 7th birthday." Katya began, her voice distant, dreamy. "I was looking at the stars just like now. I wished I could stay this way forever. Young, perfect, loved. And something in the darkness listened. It whispered that I could stop time for myself if I truly wanted to. So I said yes." Anna fought to keep her expression neutral, but fear clawed at her throat. "What whispered to you, Katya?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Katya shrugged her face, turning back to the window, as if the conversation no longer mattered. "I don't know its name. It doesn't need one. It's very old, from before names existed," Katya said, her voice distant, as she turned back to the window. "It visits me sometimes in my dreams. It shows me things." "What kinds of things?" Anna asked, her mouth dry, almost unable to force the words out. "The past, the future, places far away." For a brief moment, Katya's reflection in the darkened glass seemed to change. Her innocent, childlike features momentarily sharpened into something ancient, something unrecognizable. "It shows me what people are beneath their skin." Anna stood up abruptly, a sudden chill crawling up her spine. "It's time for bed," she said quickly, trying to regain control. "School tomorrow," as she tucked Katya into bed, repeating the familiar ritual that now felt like nothing more than a hollow performance. Anna noticed something new. A small leather pouch hanging from a cord around her daughter's neck. It was something she had never seen before. "What's this?" Anna asked, reaching for it. Katya's hand shot up with surprising speed, her grip strong and unyielding as she closed it around Anna's wrist. "Don't touch it. It's mine." Anna pulled her hand back, shocked by the force of her daughter's grip and the fierce possessiveness in her usually calm voice. "Where did you get it?" she asked, her heart racing. "It was a gift," Katya replied, her tone once again childlike. "For protection." From whom? Anna asked, her curiosity growing. My friend Katya yawned, her eyelids drooping with sleep. "The one who whispers. It keeps me safe." After Katya had fallen into a deep sleep, Anna fled to the kitchen. Her hands shaking so violently she struggled to light the oil lamp. It wasn't long before Mikhail returned, having come back from his evening meeting at the village Soviet, where the men discussed lumber quotas and recited party slogans. "What's happened?" Mikhail asked, alarmed by the pale look on his wife's face. Anna recounted her conversation with Katya, each word seeming to drag itself from her throat. When she mentioned the pouch, Mikhail's expression darkened. "I'll look at it while she sleeps," he decided, his voice firm. "If it's something dangerous, I'll destroy it." "And if it's something else?" Anna asked, the fear in her voice clear. Mikhail had no answer. That night, as Katya slept soundly, Mikhail crept into her room. The small leather pouch rested against her chest, rising and falling with her steady breathing. With careful fingers, he untied the cord, sliding the pouch free. It was warmer than it should have been, almost unnaturally so. Mikhail retreated to the kitchen, where Anna waited anxiously. Together, they opened the pouch, tipping its contents onto the table. A small object fell out, an intricately carved figure that appeared to be made from bone, yellowed with age. The figure depicted a child with an oversized head and elongated limbs, its features subtly distorted, grotesque, yet not outright monstrous. Around its neck was a tiny, identical replica of the amulet Katya wore. "This is not a child's toy," Mikhail whispered, prodding the figure with a knife point, rather than touching it directly. "Where did she get something like this?" "She said it was from her friend Anna," replied, crossing herself. "Misha, I'm afraid. It's probably just something one of the village children gave her," Mikhail reasoned, though his voice lacked conviction. "An old trinket, nothing more." "Then why does she guard it so fiercely?" Anna asked, her voice trembling. "Why keep it secret?" She picked up the knife and pointed it at the figure. "We should destroy it." Mikhail nodded, taking the knife from her. He pressed the blade against the figure, intending to split it in two. But as the metal touched the yellowed material, a high-pitched sound filled the room. It wasn't loud, but it was sharp and penetrating, like the distant scream of someone falling from a great height. Both Mikhail and Anna flinched back. From Katya's room came a sudden thump, followed by the sound of small feet on the wooden floor. "She's awake," Anna gasped, hastily scooping the figure back into its pouch. Before they could hide the evidence of their investigation, Katya appeared in the doorway. She wore her nightgown, her wheat-colored hair hanging loosely around her shoulders. In the dim light, her eyes appeared entirely black, her gray irises swallowed by dilated pupils. "That's mine," she said, her voice flat and emotionless. "You had no right to take it." Katusha Mikhail began standing up from his chair, his voice steady but firm. "We were concerned. Give it back." The shout that erupted from the child was nothing like her normal voice. It was deep-layered with unnatural harmonics that made the oil lamp flicker and the windows vibrate. Anna gasped, dropping the pouch on the table in shock. Katya darted forward, snatching it up and clutching it to her chest. As her fingers closed around the leather pouch, her posture changed. The rigid tension left her small body, and her eyes gradually returned to their normal wide gray. "It protects me," she said, her voice soft again, sounding like herself. "You don't understand." "Protects you from what?" Mikhail asked, trying to keep his voice steady, despite the fear rising in his chest. "From time," Katya replied simply. "From growing old and ugly and dying like everyone else." She looked between her parents, her expression softening with sudden sadness. "Like you will." Anna stifled a sob behind her hand. Mikhail knelt before his daughter, his heart heavy as he forced himself to meet her gaze. "Katya, this isn't right. Whatever this thing is, whatever deal you think you've made, it can't be good. Please let us help you." For a brief moment, something flickered in Katya's eyes. Doubt, a brief glimpse of the innocent child she had once been. Then her expression hardened, taking on a maturity far too old for her 7-year-old face. "You can't help me," she stated flatly. "No one can. This is what I am now." She turned and walked back toward her bedroom, her steps deliberate and measured as though she were someone much older. "Don't touch my things again." After that night, a suffocating tension hung over the Vulov household. Katya continued her daily routine, attending school, helping with chores, acting like a normal child in most ways. But there were increasing moments of wrongness. Mikhail and Anna would catch her staring at them while they slept, her eyes wide and unblinking. Objects would move between rooms with no explanation. The pouch never left her neck. Most disturbing were the changes in Katya's knowledge and abilities. She began speaking in languages she had never been taught, fragments of German-Latin phrases, words and tongues neither of her parents recognized. Her school essays included references to historical events and scientific concepts far beyond the rural Soviet curriculum. When asked how she knew these things, Katya would simply smile and say, "My friend shows me." By May, Anna had taken to sleeping with a small icon of the Virgin Mary hidden beneath her pillow, a dangerous act in the fiercely atheist Soviet Union. Mikhail, though he had outwardly embraced communist ideology, began visiting the old church on the edge of the forest, abandoned since the revolution, but still standing among the dust and faded saintly portraits. There in silence, he searched for answers in a faith he had long been forced to discard. It was during one such visit that he encountered Father Kir, a priest who had supposedly fled to Ukraine years ago when the Bolsheviks began executing clergymen. The elderly priest emerged from the shadows of the altar, his black cassock dusty, his beard streaked with gray. "I wondered when one of you would come seeking help," he said, sitting beside Mikhail on the worn wooden pew. "The village speaks of your daughter, Father Kir," said his voice low. Mikhail stiffened. "What do they say? That she doesn't age? That animals fear her? That strange lights have been seen around your home at night?" Father Kir's rheumy eyes locked onto Mikhail's face. "These are not new stories, Mikhail Vulov. They have been told before in different times, in different places." "What are you saying?" Mikhail asked, his voice tight. "That your daughter is not the first child to make a bargain with forces beyond our understanding." The priest pulled a small leather-bound book from his cassock. In the 17th century, a girl in a village near Arkhangelsk stopped aging at the age of 9. In 1803, a boy in Siberia remained an infant for 60 years before vanishing during a winter storm. In 1889, twins in Poland maintained the appearance of 5-year-olds well into their 20s until their parents... The priest trailed off, turning pages in the book. "Until their parents," what Mikhail demanded. Father Kir closed the book with a slow, deliberate motion. "They did what they believed necessary to free their children's souls." The implication hung in the air between them, unspoken but unmistakable. "I would never harm my daughter," Mikhail said firmly, standing up. "Whatever is happening, we will find another way." "There may not be another way," the priest replied, his voice grim. "What inhabits your daughter now, what she invited in, will not leave willingly. With each passing day, less of your true child remains." "You're wrong," Mikhail insisted. "Katya is still there. I see her sometimes behind her eyes, afraid, confused." "Then that is both a blessing and a curse," Father Kir said, also rising. "A blessing that some spark of her true self remains to be saved. And a curse because she is aware of what is happening to her." Father Kir pressed the small book into Mikhail's hands. "Read this," he said. "It contains accounts of similar cases throughout history and the methods used to address them. Some successful, others." He crossed himself. "Less so." Mikhail tucked the book inside his coat, his mind whirling with the implications of what he had learned. "If Comrade Leonov discovers I've been speaking with a priest, I was never here," Father Kir said with a tired smile. "A ghost telling tales of other ghosts. That's all." When Mikhail returned home, he found Anna sitting at the kitchen table with Baba Oya, the old midwife, who had delivered Katya a decade ago. Both women fell silent as Mikhail entered, exchanging glances filled with unspoken meaning. "Where is Katya?" Mikhail asked immediately, his voice laced with concern. "At the river with the other children," Anna replied. "Comrade Sirokina is teaching them to swim." Mikhail doubted his daughter was actually participating. More likely, she was sitting on the bank, watching the other children, with those two knowing eyes, maintaining her careful distance. "Baba Oya and I have been talking." Anna continued, her voice measured. About Katya. The old woman fixed Mikhail with a penetrating stare from beneath her heavy brows. I should have recognized the signs. When she was born, she said, her gnarled hands twisted in her lap. Silent birth, eyes too aware, born when the veil between worlds was thinnest. Under normal circumstances, Mikhail would have dismissed such talk as superstition. Dangerous superstition, especially in Soviet Russia, where scientific materialism was the only acceptable worldview. But normal had fled their lives months ago. What does it mean? Mikhail asked, sinking into a chair. She carries an old one within her, Babaoya stated flatly. A spirit from the time before when the forests were vast and humans few. They envy our warm blood, our ability to change and grow, to live fully and die completely. How could such a thing happen to a child? Mikhail demanded, his voice thick with desperation. Katya was innocent. Good. The innocent are most vulnerable, the old woman replied. Their souls not yet fully anchored to this world. And your Katya, born between years, between seasons, between night and day, she was more vulnerable than most. A door left ajar. And this old one. And it offered her something, Anna interjected softly. Eternal childhood. Babaoya nodded. A common lore. Children fear growing up, taking on responsibilities, eventually facing death. The old ones know this fear and exploit it. She leaned forward, lowering her voice, though no one else was present. But the bargain is false. The child does not remain a child. Not truly. The body may stay unchanged, but the mind accumulates years, decades eventually, centuries of knowledge and experience. Trapped in a child's form, but ancient within. A torment of its own kind. Mikhail's voice was heavy with despair. He had been turning the priest's book over in his mind ever since his meeting with Father Kier. What can we do? He asked, his thoughts swirling, the answer elusive. There are methods, Babzoya said cautiously, her eyes dark with understanding. Rituals from the old days before the church, before the party. But they carry great risk. Great risk for Katya, for all involved. The old woman stood, her bones creaking as she moved. I will gather what is needed. 3 nights from now, when the moon is dark, be ready. After she left, Mikhail told Anna about his encounter with Father Kier. Her reaction was calm, as if she had been waiting for this moment. The old ways persist, she said simply. Church or folk magic both continue in secret. The party men may rule by day, but they don't venture into the forests at night. They don't hear what whispers between the trees. That evening, when Katya returned from the river, her clothes were dry and her hair unruffled by the strong winds that had blown all day. She moved through the house like a ghost, silent and observant, her detachment palpable. During dinner, she ate little pushing food around her plate without actually consuming any. Aren't you hungry? Katusha Anna asked, forcing normality into her voice. Katya replied, almost matter-of-factly. I don't need food anymore. My friend provides what I require. Mikhail and Anna exchanged glances across the table, both of them suddenly on edge. Everyone needs food to live, Mikhail said carefully, trying to keep his voice steady. It's how bodies work. Katya tilted her head, her gray eyes locking onto his, with a clinical interest that was unsettling. Your body, perhaps? Mine is different now. She pushed her plate away and stood. May I be excused? I want to read before bed. After Katya had left, Mikhail retrieved the priest's book from its hiding place in the woodshed. He and Anna bent over it at the kitchen table, their shadows stretching tall against the walls as they read by the flickering lamplight. The book contained accounts of children who had stopped aging, who developed strange abilities, and who gradually became alienated from humanity. The descriptions matched Katya's transformation with disturbing precision. Some cases ended with the child simply disappearing, fully transformed into whatever entity had possessed them. Others ended more tragically with desperate families or frightened communities taking drastic action. Between these accounts were rituals, prayers, and methods of exorcism from various traditions. Christian rites alongside older pagan practices, folk remedies next to elaborate ceremonial instructions. "These can't all work," Anna whispered, tracing a finger over a particularly complex diagram. "They contradict each other. Perhaps what matters is belief," Mikhail suggested quietly. "Faith that something will work. And if nothing does..." Anna's voice broke as she spoke. "What then?" Mikhail had no answer. 3 nights later, as promised, Babzoya arrived at the Volkov home after midnight, accompanied by 2 other village elders. Stepan Orlov, a hunter known for his deep knowledge of the forest, and Galina Petrova, a woman reputed for her ability to find lost things and lost people. "Where is the child?" Babzoya asked without preamble. "Sleeping," Anna replied nervously, glancing toward Katya's closed bedroom door. "Are you certain?" Galina asked, her milky blind eyes turning toward the door. Despite her blindness, she seemed to see something no one else could. Mikhail nodded. "I checked 10 minutes ago. She takes longer to fall asleep now, but when she does, she sleeps deeply. Until she doesn't." Stepan muttered under his breath, removing his worn fur hat and revealing his balding head. "We should hurry." The group moved silently through the kitchen and to Katya's bedroom door. Babzoya produced a small bottle of clear liquid from her shawl, uncorking it and sprinkling the contents on the threshold. "To keep what's inside from coming out," she whispered. Stepan placed a small bundle of dried herbs above the door frame. "And this to keep what's outside safe." Galina remained silent, her blind eyes fixed unseeing on the wooden panels of the door. She murmured words in a language no one else recognized, her lips moving in silent recitation of prayers known only to her. Mikhail gently eased the door open. The room beyond was dark, illuminated only by the faint moonlight filtering through the curtains. Katya lay in her bed, her chest rising and falling steadily. The leather pouch was visible against her nightgown. The adults entered silently, forming a loose circle around the bed. Babzoya nodded to Mikhail, who carefully placed his hands on Katya's shoulders, ready to restrain her if needed. Anna stood nearby holding a small glass of sedative tea prepared by Babzoya in case they needed to calm Katya. The old midwife began to chant, her voice barely audible, in a language Mikhail didn't recognize. It was older than Russian, perhaps older than any tongue still spoken in the modern world. Stepan's deep, gravelly voice joined hers, harmonizing with her cracked soprano. Galina swayed slightly, adding her own melodic line to the strange chorus. As they chanted, Babzoya reached for the leather pouch around Katya's neck. The moment her fingers touched the cord, Katya's eyes snapped open, completely black. No whites, no irises, just deep, empty darkness. "I warned you came." The voice from Katya's mouth layered with an eerie harmonic quality. It was stronger now, more confident. "She is mine now." Mikhail tightened his grip on his daughter's shoulders as she began to thrash her strength far beyond what her small frame should possess. The bed creaked and shuddered under her, as if protesting the unnatural force. "Hold her," Babzoya commanded, abandoning her chant to reach for the pouch again. Katya's back arched impossibly, her spine bending at a grotesque angle that should have snapped it. A high-pitched keening emanated, not from her mouth, which was stretched in a silent scream, but from somewhere deeper, somewhere within her chest, as though the sound came from inside her very bones. The tea, Babzoya shouted to Anna, who rushed forward with the glass. But before she could reach her, an invisible force struck her, sending the glass flying against the wall, where it shattered the liquid hissing as it hit the wooden surface. The pouch, Galina cried, her blind eyes wide with terror. It must be removed. Stepan lunged forward, hunting knife in hand, slashing at the cord around Katya's neck. The leather parted, and the pouch fell onto the blanket. Instantly, Katya went rigid, then limp. The blackness receded from her eyes, revealing her normal gray irises wide with confusion and fear. "Mama," she whispered, her voice her own again.
"Papa, what's happening?"
"It's all right, Katusha," Mikhail soothed his grip gently, but not releasing. "We're trying to help you." Baboya snatched up the pouch, holding it away from the bed. "Step on the fire." The hunter nodded, taking the pouch and retreating toward the kitchen stove, which had been stoked to full heat in preparation. "No." Katya suddenly screamed, struggling against her father's hands. You don't understand. It will be angry." "What will be angry, child?" Galina asked, moving closer to the bed, her blind eyes somehow finding and holding Katya's gaze. "The one who whispers. The one who keeps me safe." Tears streamed down Katya's face. "It promised I would never have to grow old, never get sick, never die. It said it would protect me forever." "And what did it ask in return?" Galina pressed. Katya's struggles slowed her expression, becoming uncertain. Just a place to stay inside me. It said we would share. And have you been sharing truly?" Galina's voice was gentle, her words hanging in the still air. "Or has it been taking more and more of you, leaving less of Katya behind?" The girl's face crumpled. I don't know anymore. Sometimes I can't remember who I am. Sometimes I watch myself doing things, saying things, but it's not me deciding." From the kitchen came the sound of the stove door clanging open, followed by Stepan's voice raised in a prayer or incantation. His words were indistinct, but the cadence unmistakable. Katya stiffened again, her eyes widening in terror. "No, stop him, if he destroys it." Her words were cut off, as her body convulsed again, her back arching at that impossible angle. From her open mouth emerged not a scream, but a plume of dark smoke writhing like a living thing. The smoke coalesced above the bed, forming something vaguely humanoid, but wrong. Its limbs were too long, its head misshapen. Its features were suggested rather than defined, a mere shadow of something human. The temperature in the room plummeted and frost began to form on the windows, despite the May warmth outside. The smoke shape twisted and writhed its form, growing larger, more defined, until it seemed to be a grotesque figure standing above them. "Old one, be gone," Baba Oya commanded, flinging a handful of powder into the apparition. "You have no claim here." The smoke shape shuddered and let out that same high-pitched keening they had heard before. It lunged toward Katya, who lay limp in her father's grasp. Her eyes rolled back, showing only whites. Galina stepped forward, arms outstretched. "By earth that bears us. By air we breathe, by water that flows in our veins, by fire that warms our hearts. You are denied this child." The smoke recoiled, then surged forward again with greater force, enveloping Galina completely. The blind woman screamed once, a sound of pure agony, before she crumpled to the floor. From the kitchen came a cry of triumph from Stepan, followed by a roaring sound as something caught fire with unusual intensity. The smoke shape above the bed contorted violently, stretching toward the door, as if being pulled by some unseen force. A soundless howl seemed to emanate from the smoke, vibrating in the bones of everyone present. Then, with a final convulsion, it dissipated, not vanishing, but tearing apart, fragments dissolving into the air like mist under the sun. Silence fell, broken only by ragged breathing and the soft crackle of the fire in the kitchen. Katya lay unconscious, her face peaceful for the first time in months. Galina remained on the floor, Baba Oya kneeling beside her, checking for signs of life. "Is it gone?" Anna asked, her voice barely audible. "For now," Baba Oya replied without looking up. "The anchor is destroyed. Its hold is broken, but such things don't truly die. They retreat. Wait, look for new doorways." "Will it come back for Katya?" Mikhail asked, still cradling his daughter's limp form, the weight of his question hanging heavily in the air. Perhaps, perhaps not. Baba Oya replied, sighing heavily. These old ones are patient. They think in centuries, not moments, but they also hold grudges. Stepan returned from the kitchen, his face ashen. It fought the fire. The flames turned green, then black, he said, his voice trembling. The bone figure screamed. He continued, his hand instinctively crossing himself, a gesture forbidden by Soviet doctrine, but ingrained in him by centuries of tradition. It's ash now. Nothing but ash. Baboya looked up from Galina's still form, her expression grave. We've paid a price tonight. Galina has crossed over. The old one took her instead of the child. Mikhail and Anna bowed their heads in grief and gratitude for the sacrifice that had saved their daughter. Stepan muttered a prayer, while Baba Oya gently closed Galina's sightless eyes with her weathered fingers.
What do we do now?
Anna asked, her voice breaking as she moved to sit on the bed beside Katya, stroking her daughter's wheat-colored hair from her forehead. You leave, Baba Oya said firmly. Tonight if possible. Tomorrow at the latest. Go far from this place. Change your names. Never speak of what happened here. Mikhail protested, his face a mixture of fear and uncertainty. The authorities won't simply let us leave. We need permits, papers. I have connections, Stepan said quietly. People who move between worlds, the Soviet world and the older one beneath it. For a price, they can help you disappear, Anna began. We have little money. Not that kind of price, Hunter interrupted. A promise that you will watch over your daughter, that you will teach her to recognize the signs should the old one or another like it come calling again, that you will pass this knowledge on to her children and her children's children. Mikhail nodded solemnly, the weight of their new life settling on his shoulders. We promise. That night, as Baba Oya and Stepan prepared Galina's body for a secret burial in the forest, one that would never be recorded in Soviet registries, the Vulovs packed what few possessions they could carry. Clothes, some food, the family icon hidden inside a loaf of bread, Mikhail's tools wrapped in oilcloth. Katya remained unconscious until dawn. She woke with a sharp gasp, sitting upright in bed, as if pulled by invisible strings. Katusha Anna approached cautiously. How do you feel? The girl looked around confused, then down at her own hands, as if seeing them for the first time. Empty, she whispered. Hollow inside, but myself again. Mikhail knelt beside her. Do you remember what happened? Katya nodded slowly. Some of it. Like a dream that's fading. Her hand went to her throat, finding the pouch gone. It's really over. Yes, Mikhail assured her, though a flicker of doubt remained in his heart. We're leaving Kremink today. Going somewhere new, somewhere safe. Will it find me again? Katya asked, fear evident in her voice. Not if we're careful, Anna said, sitting beside her daughter and gathering her into an embrace. Not if we remember what happened and stay vigilant. As the first light of dawn brightened the eastern sky, the Vulov family, now the Sulovs, slipped away from their home of many years. Stepan met them at the edge of the forest, leading them along hidden paths, known only to hunters and those who lived on the margins of Soviet society. 3 days later, they boarded a freight train bound for the east, hidden among crates of machinery, destined for the new industrial cities being built in the Urals. Their papers, procured through channels best left unexamined, identified them as the Sov family workers, volunteering for the 5-year plan's ambitious projects. Over the following weeks, as they traveled further from Kremink, a subtle change began in Katya. One morning, as they washed at a stream during a stop, Anna noticed a loose tooth in her daughter's mouth, the first sign of normal childhood development in years. Mama, look, Katya exclaimed, wiggling the tooth with her tongue. I'm growing again. Tears filled Anna's eyes as she embraced her daughter. Mikhail, watching from a few paces away, felt the knot of tension he'd carried for months finally began to unravel. The Sulov family eventually settled in Magnitogorsk, one of the massive industrial complexes being constructed as showcases of Soviet achievement. There, amidst the chaos of a city being built from nothing, they blended in with thousands of other workers and their families. Katya grew normally from that point forward, shooting up several inches in the first year, losing baby teeth, gaining adult ones. By 1935, she had become a teenager indistinguishable from her peers, except for a certain weariness in her eyes, a caution in forming friendships. But at night, sometimes Mikhail or Anna would find her staring out the window of their cramped apartment, watching the stars with an intensity that reminded them of darker times. On those occasions, one parent would gently lead her back to bed, reminding her of the promise they had all made to remember to stay vigilant, to recognize the whispers of ancient things that envied human life. And sometimes, when the night was particularly dark and the stars particularly bright, Katya would admit in whispers that she could still feel it out there, searching not just for her but for any child with a door left ajar between worlds. "But I'm closing my door," she would say, her voice growing stronger with each passing year. "I'm locking it tight, and someday I'll teach others to do the same." In 1941, when Nazi Germany invaded the Soviet Union, Katya was 21, a young woman working as a nurse in the Magnitogorsk hospital. As the city shifted its industrial capacity to support the war effort, she volunteered for a medical unit heading to the front lines. The night before her departure, she sat with her aging parents in their kitchen drinking tea in silence until Katya finally spoke. "It never stopped looking for me," she said quietly. "All these years I've felt it searching, but it's grown weaker as I've grown stronger. Each day I age naturally. Each change my body undergoes diminishes its claim on me." "You don't have to go to the front," Anna said, her once dark hair now streaked with gray. "There's danger enough here." "I'm not running from danger anymore," Katya replied, taking her mother's hand. "I'm running toward purpose. There will be children near the front, refugees, orphans, children made vulnerable by war and loss. The old ones will be drawn to them offering false comfort, false promises. And you'll recognize the signs," Mikhail said with pride. "You'll close the doors before they can enter." Katya nodded. "That's my real war. Not against fascists, though I'll fight them too, but against what waits in the spaces between the patient hunters of innocence." When she left the next morning, Katya carried in her pack a small book, not Father Kier's tome, which had been left behind in their flight from Kremenk, but one she had written herself over the years. In it, she had recorded everything she remembered about her experience, everything her parents had told her, and everything she had learned through careful research in libraries and cautious conversations with the keepers of old knowledge who still existed in the shadows of Soviet society. It was a record, a warning, a guide for others who might face what she had faced. The war raged for 4 long years. Mikhail and Anna received occasional letters from their daughter, carefully worded to pass military censors, but containing coded phrases that assured them she was safe and continuing her secret work. In her last letter, dated April 1945, as Soviet forces closed in on Berlin, Katya wrote, "I found 3 children last week, siblings orphaned near Dresden. The youngest, a boy of 6, was already wearing a pouch around his neck, given to him by a friendly shadow. I recognized it immediately. When I burned it, something screamed in the distance beyond the artillery fire. The boy cried for a day and a night, then woke smiling, asking when breakfast would be served. His first interest in food in months, the nurses tell me. I am not alone in this work. I've discovered there are others. A French resistance fighter who specializes in finding children hidden during the Nazi occupation. a British RAF pilot who swears his plane is guided by something beyond instruments when searching for downed crews. A Polish woman who can tell with a touch whether a child is truly themselves or hosting. We have agreed to stay in contact after the war ends to form a network to watch for signs and share knowledge. The old ones have fed well during this conflict. So many doors left ajar by trauma and loss. But we are closing them one by one. I may not return to Magnitogorsk when this is over. My work will take me elsewhere, but know that the frightened child you saved in Kremink has grown into someone who saves others. The chain remains unbroken. With endless love and gratitude, your Katusha. Mikhail and Anna Vulov, now living as the Sokolovs, never saw their daughter again. Whether she fell in the final battles of the war or simply disappeared into her new purpose, they never knew with certainty. But sometimes in the decades that followed, Mikhail and Anna would hear stories. An American exchange teacher in Moscow who identified a troubled child as being between. A doctor in Leningrad renowned for treating children with mysterious ailments that defied medical explanation. A gray-eyed woman who appeared at sites of disasters where children had been orphaned or traumatized, and who always departed once she had identified and helped certain specific young ones. And occasionally, rarely, they would receive a package with no return address. Inside a new page or two for the book they kept hidden beneath a floorboard in their bedroom. Additional knowledge, new methods, updated warnings about the old ones and their evolving tactics. The last such a package arrived in 1963, shortly after Mikhail's death. Inside, Anna found a single sheet of paper with just a few lines. It read, "The work continues. The network grows. Some doors will always be left ajar that cannot be helped. But more are closed now than open. More children grow naturally than remain suspended. It is enough to know we fight even if we cannot win completely." The girl who never aged now has gray in her hair and lines around her eyes, and she has never been more grateful for these signs of time's passage. It was signed with a single letter, K. In the decades since the network Katya helped establish has continued its quiet work, identifying children at risk, recognizing the signs of ancient entities seeking entry to our world, and closing doors left ajar by trauma loss or simple vulnerability. Their records passed from hand to hand, from guardian to guardian, contain accounts from across history and around the world, children who stopped aging parents, who grew afraid of their own offspring, ancient things that whisper promises too tempting to refuse. And always at the core of their knowledge, the story of a girl in 1930s Russia who made a bargain with darkness, whose parents fought to save her, and who grew up to save others. A reminder that the most terrifying monsters are not those that attack from without, but those that offer what we most desire, asking only for a small space within us in return. A reminder that true horror lies not in the grotesque or the violent, but in the subtle wrongness of a child who never ages, frozen in time, while everything around them changes, dies, and is forgotten. The whispers continue. The doors still open. The network still watches. And somewhere, perhaps a gray-eyed woman still works impossibly old now, if natural laws apply to her, but perhaps sustained by other means. Other bargains made with better entities than the one she escaped in her childhood. Still closing doors, still saving children, still ensuring that the natural order, birth, growth, age, and eventual peaceful death remains the rightful path for human souls. For in that natural progression, terrible and beautiful as it is, lies our true humanity, our triumph over the ancient darkness that waits patient and hungry in the spaces.